Hey everyone, and welcome to the Game Code. We are the only video game show in Atlantic Canada and bringing you the latest and everything that has to do with video games. I'm Yazid, standing in for Stephanie today. With us is Rial, who's going to be showing us a really cool gadget later on the show. Let's check out what's coming up in this jam-packed episode. We meet up with a proud owner of a next-generation virtual reality gadget. Rial, could this gadget be the next evolution of gaming, or will it give you a headache and be a bust? We analyze the Oculus Rift. Whether you love Steam or hate it, Steam Greenlight is doing wonders for indie games. We check in with Stephanie, who shares her favorite titles. Rial, you played World of Warcraft, right?
Ages ago.
Would you consider yourself an addict?
Oh, definitely.
You know who else is? Our host, Stephanie. She wanted to do a top 10 wonders of Azeroth. We also had no way, but she's the host, so she gets what she wants. And finally, it's Superman versus Batman. Mike Daniels joins Mike Sharp on Couch Review and to discuss Injustice: Gods Among Us. While Rial gets ready with the Oculus Rift, Stephanie shares her favorite Steam Greenlight titles. Let's take a look.
Whether you're a regular PC gamer or not, there is little doubt that you've probably heard of Steam. Developed by Valve Corporation, Steam is pretty much the #1 way to access games online, making it the digital distribution preference for game developers and especially indie studios. With a library of over 2,000 titles and over 50 million active user accounts, Steam is dominating the digital distribution gaming market. Now, in one of last year's episodes, we covered major news from Steam, and this was the announcement of their Greenlight program. Greenlight is a community sourcing initiative designed to solicit recommendations from active Steam users for games they think should be added to the service. Developers are able to submit information about their projects, as well as early builds or beta versions for consideration. Steam users can pledge support for these games, and Valve will help make top pledged games available on Steam. Pretty cool, right? Well, it's been almost a year now, and so far the Greenlight program has brought over 40 titles to digital distribution. And we wanted to give you the lowdown on some of the most successful releases. These are the kind of games you can expect to see given the green light. So let's get started. McPixel was the very first game to be greenlit for Steam, and it's apparent why this PC, iOS, Android game would appeal to the Steam community. With its pixelated graphics, synthesized music, and old-school point-and-click puzzle solving, McPixel seemed to have the right amount of hilarity paired with a retro gaming style. The game centers around the title character McPixel, who's actually a parody of the secret agent hero from the 80s that you'll know as MacGyver. With several other references to pop culture characters and 100 different levels, the goal in each challenge is just to basically prevent stuff from blowing up. And you have only 20 seconds to save the day, so you best be thinking on your toes. What's interesting in the promotion of this game, in addition to Steam Greenlight, is that developer Mikołaj Kamiński actually promoted the pirating of the game via the Pirate Bay, just in order to get people playing and talking about it. And it also ended up being torrented through a Reddit post. It's because of this that McPixel became the first game to ever be endorsed by the Pirate Bay, and it no doubt helped it in getting community backing on Greenlight. Next on the list is No Time to Explain. Another Kickstarter achiever, this platformer from indie developers Tiny Build began originally as a Flash game, getting some attention on Newgrounds. Following that success, the creators sought a full version build, and where did they turn? Kickstarter. A modest $26,000 was pledged to support the game, including one impressive $2,000 contribution from Minecraft creator Notch. Not a bad endorsement. Basically, the game follows an unnamed protagonist as he chases his future self. Why? Well, there's no time to explain, of course. This time-traveling version of the hero has been captured, and you must navigate through the time paradox and alternative timelines to eventually beat the game. With strong comedic elements, No Time to Explain doesn't take itself too seriously, as you make your way through various obstacle levels with a jetpack gun, encountering dinosaurs, giant alien crabs, and even ribs in people's eyes along the way. Apparently it just keeps getting more and more ridiculous as you go. While it's been described as Super Meat Boy level frustrating, and with multiple performance issues reported, the voice acting as well as the music is supposedly not half bad, and the soundtrack is actually getting released on iTunes. Next up we have Sang-Froid, Tales of Werewolves. Now the setting of this indie action strategy is actually in Lower Canada in the 1800s. Montreal indie developers Artifice Studios have crafted this bilingual single-player game that follows two feuding lumberjack brothers as every night they must protect their sister from an aggressive pursuit by the devil himself. During the day, which is the first phase, you prepare your defenses for what is to come in the second phase at night, which is essentially werewolves and various other creatures trying to kill you. The enemies are incredibly stronger than the hero, so you need to set up your defenses well during the day to have a good chance at either killing your enemies or frightening them away at night. This can be traps set, or ambushes, or combinations of strategies including melee attacks with axes and guns. Sang-Froid has a skill system based heavily on your typical role-playing game, as well as historical weapons and items. But one thing that's super cool about this game is that it's co-written by best-selling Canadian author Brian Perrault, which you might know from Amos d'Aragon fame. Another cool thing is that it incorporates 19th century Canadian legends and folklore, and let's be honest, that's not something we Canucks get to see in games very often. Finally, Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of the Lounge Lizards Reloaded. I mean, this was one we had to cover. The original version of the game was one of the earliest PC games that I remember actually playing through, on MS-DOS no less. Developer Enfusion and publisher Replay Games tag-teamed on this project to give the 80s classic a reboot with updated HD graphics, full vocal audio, as well as other enhancements like new puzzles and characters. If you aren't familiar with the Leisure Suit Larry series, this is a command-based adventure game that follows protagonist Larry Laffer, the original 40-year-old virgin, around the down-and-out city of Lost Wages. Larry is essentially on a mission to, what else, lose his virginity. The mild perversity, but never too over-the-top humor of creator Al Lowe is brought back to life in this remake, where you'll see graphics similar to the latest in the Larry Laffer series, Magna Cum Laude in 2004, and Box Office Bust in 2009. The cool thing about this game is that it's actually a Kickstarter champion as well, with the creators raising over $500,000 to develop. Now there's some casino money. And there you have it, just a taste of what you can expect to find on Steam Greenlight. With more games being given the go-ahead by the community every few weeks, you can expect to see more community-supported games in the very near future. Now if you want to see a full list of games that have been given the green light by Steam, be sure to check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GameCodeTV, and we'll have the link up there for you. And if you already have a Steam account, be sure to get into the Greenlight service and show your support for the games that speak to you.
Coming up next is a piece for all our World of Warcraft fans out there like Rial. Stephanie lists her top 10 regions of Azeroth.
Eversong Woods better be on that list.
Let's check it out.
What's up, everyone? Now, if you've been watching the show for any length of time, you'll know that I'm a huge World of Warcraft fan and regular player, so of course I would jump at the chance to talk Warcraft with all of you. But you certainly don't have to be one of the tens of millions of WoW players in the world to enjoy the vast, beautiful, and sometimes mind-blowing scenery in the game that's spread across the fictional fantasy world created by Blizzard Entertainment. I'm breaking down for you the top 10 regions of Azeroth, so let's get started. Number 10 is a zone not yet even a year old. The Jade Forest was part of the Mists of Pandaria expansion released last year, and it's actually the starting zone for the Pandaren continent for both Alliance and Horde players. It's a lush rainforest with cascading waterfalls and stone spires, and in addition to some of the best landscapes, Chinese architecture, and dungeon temples you're going to see on the continent, one striking area of the Jade Forest is the Arboretum, which is a scenic, calm forest filled with blossoming cherry trees, and once your quest string brings you there, you won't want to leave. Well, unless you acquire your flying serpent mount there. Number 9 I'm giving to Dunmorrow. Now the region itself is mostly snow-covered hills, kind of a winter wonderland and probably the best snowy landscaped area in the game. But it's the primary city of Ironforge that's most impressive. With a combo of great halls and industrial architecture, high ceilings and massive columns, the dwarven capital city is truly something to behold. You can take the Deep Run tram underwater tunnel to Stormwind City, and you won't want to miss getting some character screenshots with the statue of Magni Bronzebeard. Of course, it's also the go-to place for the Alliance during the annual Brewfest. At number 8, of course, we can't really neglect the Outland continent in our countdown, even though it's not technically a part of Azeroth proper. Netherstorm was introduced in the Burning Crusade expansion back in 2007. A twisting nether of land and rock fragments, you truly have the feeling of being on another planet with its lightning arcs and thick haze of violet. While gravity seems to slowly be tearing the area apart, some impressive structures still remain, as great magical domes inhabit the ethereals, as well as 5 massive mana forges that siphon mana from the twisting nether to be used by the Blood Elves. At number 7, I chose Deepholm, which is one of the 4 regions of the Elemental Plains of the Cataclysm expansion. You feel like you're on another planet in Deepholm as well. It's a vast series of plateaus and crystal spires. It's the home of many earth elementals, and the surface is rough, covered with fissures and craters, and it regularly quivers with earthquakes. The gravity-defying rocks and crystals are literally going to pieces in front of you, and while it's often insanely tedious to navigate around, it's almost worth the trip to take in everything in this area, which is huge. At number 6, Crystal Song Forest is aptly named. While it appears at first glance to be a wintry scene with snow and ice covering the area, the snow and ice is actually crystal emanating from the ground. In fact, the trees are crystal as well, all except the great tree, which was spared when the once lush, natural green forest was transformed to what it is now. Of course, Crystal Song Forest is home to one of the primary cities in Azeroth, which is the neutral domain of Dalaran. Dalaran is by far one of my favorite cities, with its red brick streets and violet spires, and if you look hard enough, you'll find the charming underbelly of the city. If only the city wasn't so hard to get to. At number 5 is Dragonblight. Now, this is one of the banner areas of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. It was released in 2008. It's mostly an icy valley riddled with the remains of dead dragons, and while it may look like an Arctic wasteland, the mimic northern lights in the sky and some of the architectural structures bring a lot of character to the area. Wyrmrest Temple in particular is one of the most popular screenshotted buildings in the game, and the 5 beautiful but eerie dragon shrines are great places to quest. At number 4 is Nagrand, and it was here where I struggled whether or not to include Mulgore as well, since the areas are really similar with green and yellow grassy plains and a pink sky. Both are great areas for flying and checking out the scenery, but Nagrand trumps Mulgore in that it has a few areas with beautiful water details and airborne islands with waterfalls. It's another welcome distraction from the otherwise bleakness of Outland, and a great area to quest and battle in. Now, my primary WoW character has been a Blood Elf ever since I started playing the game, so I had to have the Blood Elf starting zone of Eversong Woods on the list. In what seems like an eternal summer, this area of the Eastern Kingdoms has seen its share of battle, but it hardly shows amidst the Golden Forest and High Elf architecture. Well, if you don't count that ghastly black scar straight down the middle caused by the hordes of the undead. Anyways, the Woods capital and primary Blood Elf dwelling of Silvermoon City is, if not the most impressive capital in the game, it's definitely the biggest. But it's hard to ignore the majesty of the place when strutting your mount through the Court of the Sun and up through the Sun Fury Spire. And we're getting down there. Number 2 is another from the Burning Crusades Outland, and I'm talking about Zangar Marsh. This is probably one of the most unique areas in the game in terms of landscape, strange enemies, as well as music, as the theme of this area is haunting, and it just might send chills down your spine. But it's a good fit for the otherwise tranquil area. You might not expect much from an area primarily covered by a swamp of lakes and pools and a forest of giant mushrooms, but it's surprisingly charming with its fungal theme and phosphorescent light emanating from its inhabitants. It's a welcome ecosystem amidst the many other dreary and fragmented areas of Outland. And coming in at number 1, we have the Night Elf starting zone of Teldrassil. Of course, in Warcraft, you know that any area where elves are dwelling, it's going to be spectacular, whether it's been ravaged by the Scourge or not. Teldrassil is a large tree, so large that it's actually its own island. The Night Elf capital city of Darnassus takes up most of the area and is a unique Azerothian capital with its openness to the sky, charming bridges, and interior lakes. In the surrounding areas, you'll also find many druidic-type structures that dot a landscape of lush green grass, violet skies, and glowing blue water pools. This was one of my favorite places to play, and I guarantee you'll want to create a Night Elf character just so you can quest there. That wraps up our top 10 regions of Azeroth. If you don't play the game, we hope you enjoyed this special look into the world of Warcraft, and if you do play, get in there and spend some time at your favorite places and send us your screenshots.
Coming up after the break, we get introduced to what could be the next generation of virtual reality gaming. Rial is here to show us the Oculus Rift.
It's unreal.